Well, I hope everybody had an absolutely fabulous day. I know I did. I got to finally get away from my computer and go walking. Yeah, it was only 6 miles, but it's a start. Because those pandemic pounds, they need to get out of here, right? I know, it's a thing, I'm going to tell you. So tonight, I was going back over my catalog of work, like you do when you're going to sit down with a few dozen, hundred, whatever, of your closest friends and tell them a story at night. And two stories just kind of jumped out at me. One of them came from my friend Shireen Silverberg, who tagged me in a post. And these two stories, I know they seem they may seem like they're not related at all, but I think you'll see where I'm going with this, because the nation's at war with itself right now. And so this story, I know people remember the Nazi flag in Ghent. You have to remember the Nazi flag in Ghent. It was during the Obama administration. Now, the logic that happened inside the head of the gentleman who made the decision to do this is circuitous at best, but here we go. The headline from the Christian Science Monitor for my piece at that time was, "Why would someone fly a Nazi flag to protest Obama?" I know there are a lot of short answers here, but we're going for the long one. A physician has hoisted a Nazi flag, a Nazi war ensign, outside of his home in what he says is a protest against Führer Obama. And he is not the first. This is from November 21st, 2014. And clearly, things have not gotten better for some members of our community since then. This morning I woke to find myself tagged in a Facebook post by a friend in my town whose neighbor has chosen to fly a Nazi flag. Shireen Silverberg of Norfolk, Virginia, wrote on Facebook that radiologist William Wheeler hoisted the flag near the front door of his home in their predominantly Jewish neighborhood on Thursday night to protest Führer Obama. We asked how many people are going to know that a swastika stands for protesting Obama, Ms. Silverberg said in a phone interview. And his response, she says, was, "Everyone's an Obama supporter." I was apparently named at the end of the post to draw my journalistic attention to the story, not because I was in any way involved. Accompanying Silverberg's post was a picture of a crisp red flag with black and white lines and a large black swastika and smaller iron cross. It's not the typical Nazi flag, a red field with an angular, spidery black swastika. No, this was the war emblem of the Nazi Navy. The Kriegsmarine flew from 1938 until the end of the war. Norfolk is a Navy town where warships and submarines are stationed and repaired, so this is an interesting and perhaps significant choice on the part of the man who chose to fly it. Apparently flying some version of the Nazi flag to protest Obama isn't new. Back in 2011, the Idaho State Journal reported that postal worker, because of course, Gene Martin, a retired veteran, told the media he was displaying the flag as a sign of his disgust with President Obama's policies. Mr. Martin said he feels the policies of the United States government are heading towards fascism. quote, President Barack Obama is heading us down the tube just like Adolf Hitler did. Martin told the Journal, I just really think this country is going downhill thanks to our brilliant leadership back in Washington. In Stratford, Connecticut, in June 2013, a man flew Nazi flags, multiple, in protest of President Obama's policies, according to reports there. On March 2014, Warner Robins, Georgia resident Gil Schweitzer flew the Nazi flag, quote, in his backyard to protest of the dictator he believes President Barack Obama has become, according to media reports there. In each of these cases, those who flew the swastika said that they did not do so to advance Nazi ideology, but to call attention to policies that they perceive as fascist. I would just like to add at this moment, I'm impressed by the number of people who are not fascists or Nazis who just seem to have one of these laying around. Quote, I don't think that using the Nazi flag to protest Obama is really a trend, said Mark Potok, a senior fellow at the Southern Poverty Law Center, in a phone interview. The bottom line is the ludicrousness of someone who compares the ideology of President Obama with the policies of Nazi Germany, which resulted in the death of over 70 million people. It's just ludicrous. Buckle up. I'm about to give you a little more ludicrous. Because the theme for tonight is the ludicrous things some people in our country, and now we know, even in our own neighborhood, if not our neighborhood, then our town, do some really ludicrous things when they see color, depending on the color. I did this other piece, and when I reread this piece today, I thought of two things. One was I thought of some research I had done on the color Baker Miller pink. Please look it up. I'll put it in the comments for this video when I'm done. Baker Miller pink is also known as drunk tank pink, and in this article I interview the author of Drunk Tank Pink. Hey, Wanda. And drunk tank pink is a very interesting color. It's a color that I think we could use right now. It's not in this story exactly, but the author, as I mentioned, of the study on drunk tank pink is. So drunk tank pink was a color that they came up with when they were testing colors to see how people respond. Now, drunk tank pink is a little bit like Pepto-Bismol color. And they tested it out in the drunk tanks at police stations around the country, particularly in Chicago and Philadelphia and New York, to see if the most violent, inebriated, hateful, crazy people could be made calm by just being exposed to a color for a little while. What they found out was that Baker Miller pink, named after the two people who came up with it, Pantone color, calms people the heck out. In fact, it calmed drunks down so quickly, and the study was found by the NFL. Now, the NFL and the Dallas Cowboys in particular thought that they might have a use for that color, so the owner of the Dallas Cowboys had them paint the visitors' locker room at the Dallas Stadium Baker Miller pink. And the results were dramatic. Every visiting team that played the Dallas Cowboys during the time that locker room was painted Baker Miller pink lost because they were just too relaxed. All their testosterone took a nap. All their hostility just faded away. All they wanted to do was hug people. That didn't work very well for football. I think it would work excellently when it comes to protests. I wonder what an entire sea of drunk tank pink, Baker Miller pink t-shirts would do. Because it'd be really hard to hate on them. Like, scientifically hard to hate on them. But This story is about what's considered the world's ugliest color. Could the world's ugliest color discourage smoking? This is from June 9th, 2016. Could drabness help deter smoking? On May 30th, World No Tobacco Day, the World Health Organization, the WHO, called on all countries to, quote, get ready for plain packaging. It was a prod for America and other nations to follow the 2012 packaging example pioneered by Australia, Ireland, the United Kingdom, and France over the past 2 years. Plain packaging restricts logos, colors, brand images, and promotional information on packages. Quote, new evidence from Australia, the first country to fully implement plain packaging, shows that changes to tobacco packaging there led to over 100,000 fewer smokers in Australia in the first 34 months since implementation in 2012. Since the 2012 packaging change, there's been a drop of 11% in tobacco sales, according to Australia's Department of Health. By 2015, the department reported 14.7% of adults aged 18 and over smoked daily, a decrease from 16.1% in 2011-2012. Part of the success is being attributed to a study done in 2012 by research agency GfK, which was hired by the Australian government to help make cigarette packaging as unappealing as possible. The study found that Pantone color 448C, also called opaque couche, was considered the most repellent color in the spectrum, and thus it was incorporated into the packaging. GfK spent 3 months generating 7 studies over 1,000 regular smokers. Alexander Schaus, director of AIMBR Life Sciences in Puyallup, Washington, who pioneered studies in the connection between color and emotion in the 1960s, said in a telephone interview that he would have preferred to see research done on non-smokers as well as smokers to get a result that could be more predictive of whether it will curb their attraction. Smokers are addicted, and they're used to associating negativity, guilt, and even shame over their addiction and being judged for that by others with this particular color, which reminds them of tobacco. So the color has an association for them that those not addicted may not have. But experts say that if laws are passed that mandate uniformly plain packaging, that there's a good chance it will pay off with a reduction in new smokers. Color influences our buying decisions 87% of the time, says color marketing expert Kate Smith of Sensational Color. I'm not sure in this particular case, but I think that there's a pretty good chance it may work. It just may be worth a try. Adam Alter, Associate Professor of Marketing at NYU Stern School of Business, the author of the book Drunk Pink, writes in an interview, yes, there's good evidence that plain packaging deters people from smoking. Australia's been using the same brown packaging, for some time. And a review of 24 studies showed that it deters smoking and also seems to make the cigarettes taste worse, which was an unexpected side effect of the repackaging, the professor writes. A cigarette that comes from an ugly brown box will similarly seem less appealing for the same reason. We associate that brown color with so many negative substances and ideas that the cigarettes come to take on those negative associations as well. I certainly think it should be tried in America, he said. Bev Conway, an associate professor of visual neuroscience at Wellesley College, says in an interview that color isn't likely to overcome addiction. It won't deter those who are already smokers, but it could be very useful in shutting down impulses of the young potential smokers. Smokers will go to great lengths to get cigarettes. The goal here, I suspect, is by reducing the attractiveness of the packaging that I think will be justified. I think there's good reason for that. In terms of what people care about, color is an important and underappreciated piece of that. Conway adds, if you're a kid and you walk into a convenience store and you see all these beautiful, vibrant colors on Skittles packaging and candy, and then you see fuchsia pink packaging and red on a cigarette, you say, wow, what's that? I want that. It's that initial moment that I suspect they're trying to turn off. Conway points out it would have to be a level playing field for it to be truly effective. It would have to be a shelf full of colorful, glittery boxes and not just one of opaque coche. Then the box probably wouldn't sell as well as the others. The military chose this color for a reason, he adds. They want it to be background. They don't want to be seen. So this is a good choice to undermine the appeal of that product. Conway says that Pantone 448C's ugliness isn't so much in the eye of the beholder as the context of the object being seen. If you're in the forest and you're walking around and you see a shade of moss on the floor, you like it. But if it's in a store and it's on a piece of meat and you see that color, you go, yag, what's wrong with that? Sadly, it does give olives a bad rap, Conway says. The original name for 448C is olive. It's misleading because the color doesn't appear to have the richness or vibrancy associated with olives, especially because the color doesn't capture the vital texture of an olive. But I can see the olive lobby would object and have it changed. 448C is more brown than it is olive. And all of those color experts, without thinking about it, in all of their books and all of their studies and all of their marketing, and I'm sitting here looking at this today going, oh my Lord. I didn't see it then, but I saw it today. All of that marketing, all of that energy and attention, because people have such a negative association with the color brown or any related shade. And what color chills people out, makes them feel happy and good? Pink. When you take a look at Drunk Tank Pink, it's kind of a almost baby skin tone pink. For white people, color, we're color motivated. Anyone who says they're colorblind or they don't see color, I don't see color, needs to start seeing color for the better. Because otherwise, I can't believe that we're so color prejudiced across the board that things won't sell if you make them a shade of brown. But if you make them a shade of pink, it just makes people feel fantastic. That, to me, it's not because the rods and cones in our eyes are doing neuroscience. I really don't. I disagree. I disagree with the neuroscientists. You know why? Because I'm a people scientist. I think that what's happening is the rods and the cones in our eyes are talking to our brain, and they're saying, ooh, look at that color, and our brain's going, bad things. There are bad things associated with that color. So I highly recommend the book Drunk Tank Pink. You can get it on your Kindle, and it is eye-opening. But as long as Baker Miller Pink chills people out, and I will tell you a little story, quick little story. There was a time where my previous spouse was extremely hostile. He just was in a bad place in his head. This was about the time when I was writing this article. And I started a little in-house experiment, which I think protesters might consider. I ordered an official Baker Miller Pink t-shirt. And every time my husband became borderline violently angry with me, or hostile, or abusive, verbally abusive, or emotionally abusive, I'd say, excuse me, and I'd run out of the room and I'd change into the shirt. And hand to God, his reactions changed. He'd smile when I walked back in the room at me. And he'd be like, oh, you look so nice. So if you're going to protest, you might want to consider Baker Miller pink, because that's how people's brains are hardwired right now. Something to think about while people are tucking away their Nazi flags, waiting for their next opportunity to fly them in protest for all the wrong reasons. Thank you, Shireen, for bringing that first story to my attention all those years ago. And I hope that the only flags we'll be seeing anytime soon are Black Lives Matter flags. Thank you for being with me. Good night.